No, I did car stereo wiring in high school, and I have vivid
Ah,
memories of, that you turn the car radio on, and the antenna's supposed to go up, and instead,
oh.
like, my window would go down. I'm like, oh, this
Seat
is
would
so
bump forward.
bad, bad, bad. But no, I admire people who do that kind of thing. The whole wiring, it's not for me. But same thing with like house wiring. I saw Nick Craver doing
Oh.
his wiring his own house stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
like, no, come on, nope, nope, nope. Mm-mm.
Richie did his own stuff, right? He had a pretty big network closet.
Yeah, but well, low voltage wiring, that's easy. It's the as soon as you
Ah.
Yeah.
start doing electric cables,
Mm.
oh, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah, I'm
Mm-mm.
good on that.
Yeah, Craver was doing his own outlets, and I'm like, no, no,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
no. I have
Uh, I,
visions of like things catching fire.
yeah, I put in ceiling fans once, and I just remember being terrified. And it was just like I turn off the breaker and like going to do it, and it's like grab like a coat hanger, like throw it.
Yeah.
Please, those sparks. Like I
Guys,
had roommates, and at the time it was like I didn't want them to like come home and be like, why doesn't the TV turn on?
Yeah.
Right.
Things catch fire. I did house sitting for my dad, and he lives in Michigan in the middle of nowhere, and they have a generator because power fails all the time. And he's like, okay, so when power fails, you go turn the generator on here, but you have to go to the electric box and you turn this off and you wire this in, and it's homemade wires. And I'm like, Dad, that's the electric box. He's like, no, it's not that bad. Just make sure you're wearing shoes, and then put on a pair of gloves, and take this broom handle and hit the switch from
Oh my
across the
God.
room. No, I'm good. I'm good. And so I just smile and nod. Yeah, sure, whatever. Okay, bye. Have a great trip. But
Like if the electricity goes out, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm putting your dog in the car, and we're
Yeah.
going off to the Hilton or something. But yeah, I am not
We're gonna
putting
go
a broom handle.
go do something safe like hang out in Detroit.
And that's so too. I know that's how my dad's gonna go. Like I love my dad dearly, but I'm sure it's gonna be one of those. He's gonna be standing in a puddle of water, trying to flip on
Yeah, right.
something. There was
Holding
another
beer.
fell off a roof. He was like trying to clean the snow off the roof. They've got a 2.5-story house, and he's cleaning the snow off a roof with a rake and slides down. And thank God he hit a snowbank. And like
Oh,
broke
wow.
broke a couple of ribs. But I'm like, seriously, you gotta stop doing that. You're in the middle of nowhere.
Isn't the main problem that you're on a roof with a rake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what point does this seem like a good idea? Oh,
Just let the snow go. It'll get there eventually. It'll go eventually. Why?
yeah.
What's the rush?
So did anybody end up with any questions, or should we?
Oh yeah, we have a ton of questions.
Oh, good. All right, go for it.
All right, cool. All right, Chatan asks, is update statistics a free tool or does it have, is it, interesting, I thought it was a tooling question. I was like,
Now you see how hard it is to read these.
Is it a free
when you don't
tool?
read them ahead of time.
Is it a free tool or does it have performance impact? How bad is it to run update stats every hour in an OLTP environment?
If you think you need to run it hourly, you probably have a parameter sniffing issue.
Go
At my
on.
last job, I inherited a server that had update stats running every 30 minutes, and I was only there, I think, about 18 months before I came here, and I never wanted to rock the boat. I mean, it was working fine. I mean, I knew that it wasn't necessary. I mean, I normally set up my servers, the ones that I am in control of, and I set them up, to do once a day update stats, and then maybe twice a day if I have a different type of load happening. But usually, I'll run update stats after the nightly stuff, runs. But I just didn't want it was working on that server, and so I didn't want to touch it. And the people that set it up were still there, and I just didn't want to rock the boat. But it's probably completely unnecessary to do it every 30 minutes, every hour. I mean, maybe at the most twice a day. I don't know. I mean, it just sounds like you're probably dealing with a parameter sniffing issue, and you should be troubleshooting that instead of updating statistics.
The overhead is going to be, of course, it'll scan objects, do lots and lots of reads. It's not doing that many writes, but it's doing a lot of reads, and it'll slow queries down while it's happening.
The
Yeah,
one
the
thing
way-
I can think of is if you're on older versions of SQL Server, like pre-2014, sometimes you would hit this nasty thing with ascending keys, where if you had fairly large tables and you had like let's just call them identity columns. It could be any column as long as the value keeps increasing, and you had data coming in at the end. All of us, and you didn't have stats that updated enough. SQL Server makes some really bad. I want to say it was like a one-row guess for any off histogram value. You could have a bunch of stuff in there, and SQL Server is like, nope, just the one row, please. Like, no, that's wrong. Please don't guess that.
If you want to learn more about that, search for Thomas Kaiser, Kejser, the ascending key problem, and it's really interesting. Most of us don't have this problem, but it's really interesting to read about. It's like car crashes, and
Aaron Stellato has a pretty good post about ascending keys and a couple of the trace flags that you can use along with them.
Oh, I don't think I've read
They're over on SQL Performance. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, one of these. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so good stuff over there too. All right, so Steve, I wish I could. I don't know. I wish there was some way that I could physically touch you, Steve. Steve asked a two-part question. I'm going to read both parts, and then I'm going to let them sink in. With SQL Server coming out fast and furious, how soon or late after a new version comes out do you bring it into your new environment? Also, physical servers or VMs?
Completely different questions.
Wow.
By the by. So let's start with that first one. How soon after a new version of SQL Server comes out do you think it's safe to start using it?
I'd go like 2 or 3 CUs, 2 or 3 cumulative updates. I'd probably feel comfortable with doing it. But I would only go if it fixes a problem that you have. If there's a problem you identify and go, oh, 2019's inlining of functions, gotta have that. Like it's my biggest performance bottleneck. Then I want to jump. But if you don't see something in the release notes where you go, this solves one of my biggest pain problems, I don't know that I would jump that fast. I would probably, what scares me is you look at, scares is the wrong word, 2017's cumulative updates, you look out the ones that even come out now, this is 2018, 2017's been out for a while, even like a dozen cumulative updates in, there's some terrifying stuff inside of there. So, and it's not that older versions don't have problems too, but I want to only go when I know I'm fixing stuff.
And to be fair, even service packs today for older versions have some pretty terrifying stuff in them too. It's not like old versions are.
We're good.
Like these are settled. I had a boss once who was like just petrified of getting off 2008 R2 RTM, and I was like, well, why? Like what? Like what's going to be the problem? It's just like he's like, you know why? Because I know what I'm getting with it.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
There's more risk to stay on it.
Yeah. Getting me to work weekends when crap goes wrong. That's what you know you're getting.
Yeah.
There was a good Twitter thread with Pedro Lopes of Microsoft. Someone was asking, they were like, hey, I don't really understand why I would upgrade this often. And Pedro banged out like 4 things that are like performance, supportability, compliance, and I forget what the fourth one was.
So does he.
Yeah, it came pretty rapid. I was like, wow.
Random guess.
Yeah, pretty good.
So how about that second part? Physical versus VMs. What do you opt for? What's your first choice?
Oh, man, I believe that every SQL Server should start as a VM, like a 4-core, 16 gig of RAM VM, and then only add more when you believe you have a performance problem that you can't fix by changing the queries or indexes. But we're in a kind of a weird business. We're in this performance tuning business where people come in when they have serious performance problems. Nobody comes in when they're happy and they're like, oh, things are great here. We just like hanging out with y'all. So there are a lot of times when we'll see people on giant metal, 40, 60, 80 core servers. We were dealing with a couple of 80 core VMs in Amazon the other day.
Boy, that X18. Yeah, 128 cores, 2 terabytes of RAM.
Ooh. And you hit that size, and you're like, well, why are we not on bare metal? Because there's a couple of advantages you get with bare metal. You get different NUMA handling if the guest and host map up beautifully. You also get the ability to run local solid state for TempDB, which you can do in the cloud with stuff like an X1E. But when you're running on premises in VMware and Hyper-V, sysadmins are usually really hesitant to let you do local solid state for TempDB. So people are like, well, but we can put $1 million in the shared storage and make it perform really fast. Well, yeah, I can strap a jet engine to a Honda Civic, but that doesn't mean it's a smart investment.
And for me, it all depends on sort of where that server is coming from. if I have an existing server that's already like, kind of a big beast and I need to put it on something else, I don't want to virtualize big servers because you run into a thing where you have this kind of one guest that like dominates the host. You can't have other servers on there with it. You can't move it to other servers because they have a bunch of other stuff on there. It's part of the beauty of VMware is the manageability stuff where you can put stuff around, put different VMs on different hosts, balance things out. As soon as you have that one big boy hanging around, you kind of lose a lot of that. You get that one-to-one host to guest to host mapping. No one says that's my virtualization dream.
Yeah, flushing.
Plus, I hate VMs.
It only gets worse in the cloud.
Everything's a VM problem. All right. So Thomas asks, have you ever heard of anyone not doing backups in an ERP system and letting another program like Arc Server take the backups? He says that it sounds like they're just taking a backup of the computer and they're not able to run CheckDB on it. So he's concerned about the recoverability of those backups, the integrity of his data, and wants to know if that's a good way of doing things.
I'm just so confused.
Well, I've seen people do flat file backups. Like there was Symantec had a backup exec or something a while back that would purport to backup open files, involve VSS snapshots and all that. But the easy way for me is just ask for a copy. I want to restore. I want to restore as of this time. Like whatever yesterday as of 5 p.m. And you just fake it. You go, oh, I dropped a table yesterday at 5 p.m. Can you go ahead and restore the database for me to another server? I'm going to pull the contents across. And watch.
Or if you want to seem like low profile about it, just say you changed the store procedure. Don't say you lost it.
Yeah. That'll get escalated quick.
This guy, Thomas, on the users table.
Yep. There you go.
All right. So Greg says, and clearly they have reached a rocket sciencey point of performance tuning this VM. He's been recommended to disable TCP Chimney Offset in VMware to improve SQL Server performance.
Goodness.
By God, you've done everything else, haven't you?
Yeah.
Somebody read a book from 2006.
Is Santa stuck in it?
What's 2005, 2006 rings a bell. We did that back in 2005, 2006. There was a whole deal with TCP Chimney Offsets. I would guess that somebody just has a really old best practices. I would be like, if you want to do that, that's great. Let's just measure before and after, make sure it made a difference. And when it doesn't make any difference, you'll identify they don't have pants on.
Yeah, I'd also press them on and say, well, what metric do you expect to see improve when you make this setting? Like, what's going to get better? What's going to get faster? And to me, it's like that disk offset thing in 2003. Where it's like, you're off by a meg, you bastard. You'll never work in this industry again. Yeah. All right. So Mike asks, have you used SQL Server on Linux much? We're going to start using it soon because our vendor uses Linux for some other apps. It seems pretty decent to him, but he wants to know if we have any thoughts on it. Well,
have you guys installed it? I don't think any of us have.
Ask me if I can install Linux.
I know.
The release notes were enough that it scared the pants off. I said pants like 2 questions in a row. It scared the pants off of me. What's not supported? Like the list of things that are. Holy cow! There's a lot of stuff that's not supported. I'm gonna have to go back down. It's like replication wasn't supported.
Well, thank God.
Yeah, which isn't so bad.
That's a feature, buddy.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Just do an insert, update, delete, and select. I mean, you're good to go. If you need any feature, not get it.
I'm going to have a tough time finding it now, of course, right on demand. But I would just go through and make sure it actually supports the features that you want. So that I tried it on Docker. I tried it on Docker containers, and there were problems around parallelism, for example, like queries could only use one core. I'm like, okay, I'm about enough here. That sounds cool, but I'll let somebody else dip in.
That's a good
I've heard
time.
Horror stories, but yeah, it just doesn't solve the problem I need to fix.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Oh, another Erik. Oh wait. Well, maybe I can't figure out if this is someone's last name or if
they just love you.
It's Erik Lover. I don't know. All right, Erik Lover. We'll see what happens here.
It's got the K. I think he loves you.
Yes, because sign of true love is that someone spell my name right. I know that because my mom spell my name right. But Erik Lover has an availability group that they set up using 2014 and Windows Server 2012. There are 3 nodes, and it's running as a managed service account on each node. Can I have Eric's old desk? You son of a, you got me good there. Is that Richie? That's Richie. We're experiencing performance issues during a mass run at midnight. Well, that's the problem. No one's there watching the server. CPU peaks around 98%. The plans in the cache are around 40,000. Single plans in the cache are around 18,000. Will clearing the plan cache solve my performance problem?
Well, if queries are already running and they're using 100% CPU, you're kind of screwed there. If there were new queries coming in and you had a bad plan, like the queries kept coming in, then you could conceivably clear the plan cache and get new plans coming in. But that I wouldn't do it by clearing the plan cache. I would go look at, if you search for parameter sniffing, or actually just go brentozar.com/go/sniff. This would be the first thing that I would suspect it would be, brentozar.com/go/sniff. And on that link, we have a link to a video that I did at SQL Day in Poland explaining how to identify parameter sniffing and why freeing the plan cache works temporarily, but just not long term.
You know what I'd say, if you have that many plans coming into the cache, you might want to look into a setting called forced parameterization, because it'll make parameter sniffing worse, but it'll reduce the number of plans in the cache, so you'll have fewer of those to look at, which is nice too. All sorts of upsides to that, because it's a job security thing, because now you'll have a parameter sniffing problem to fix, and you'll have solved a problem with all the plans in the cache, so someone will think you're really, really smart, and you're smart enough to fix parameter sniffing. So it's a two-part approach to getting a good raise, I think.
So then we also have a page on there. If you search for why multiple plans for one query are bad, it talks a little bit more about how you get into forced parameterization.
She also adds that page life expectancy is up and down during the 3-hour run, which, yes, it tends to do that. It tends to do a little up jump boogie when memory gets different levels of usage.
Even when the server's fine, it does that sawtooth. Yeah, it's not necessarily an indicator of problems.
No.
Indicator of problems.
Getting fined for that one. It's an FCC violation.
Yes.
Let's see here. Someone said a bunch of O's. I don't know what that means. Here's one from Chris Good, or Chris Bad, maybe. I don't know. Chris somewhere in the middle. I took a performance tuning course from Microsoft last week. That's not good. The presenter suggested we look into SP Blitz Index.
Oh,
very
wow.
cool. Holy cow.
Was it Connor? I think it was Connor.
It had to have been Connor.
Wow.
We need that instructor's name.
Yeah, I want to hang out with that instructor. They know their goods.
Yeah, send them some cookies.
Yeah, right.
I really would love to know who that presenter is. That's amazing. I remember the first time we used to capture emails every time someone downloaded the first responder kit. And when I started seeing Microsoft PSS people, like
really?
People, yeah, downloading it, I was like, yes, we made it. We made it.
That's awesome.
All right, let's see here. Sort of a crazy question. What are the cases when RCSI does not get mapped using SQL Server 2017 Enterprise Edition? Is there any doc or white paper? I'm not sure what you mean by mapped.
Well, because I had my client last week, I think it was. All the days are running together now, but I think it was last week's client where they had RCSI and we still saw blocking, and the select query that was causing the blocking was read committed. It hit none of the limitations. I mean, it had none of the isolation level changes, table hints. I mean, and none of us could figure out what was going on there. So I don't know if there's ever a time where the mapping doesn't. So mapping, map it from read committed over to RCSI. That we could find nothing that was escalating above read committed to cause what we were seeing.
And there are lists of things that will stop it. So like if you put index hints or lock hints in your code, like if you say with serializable, you say with no lock.
Full lock, yeah. Yeah, and I think that client was on SQL 2017 Enterprise Edition. I'm pretty sure that was the client. I know I had a recent 2017 client, so I wonder if there's a change in 2017. Well,
I would open a support case just because there was the 2016 service pack. I want to say it was SP1CU4 that broke no lock.
Oh, really?
No locks, suddenly started taking out locks. So it is possible. It's happened before.
Oops. All right, so let's see. Rakesh asks, what are the downsides of indirect checkpoint? We migrated to SQL Server 2016, and the new databases are using it, but the migrated databases were using automatic checkpoints.
What the heck is indirect checkpoint? When you're actually issuing a checkpoint command?
No, I remember hearing about this from like Connor or something.
Yeah, I don't remember
No
anything
idea.
about it because it was one of those things where like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
When will that come in handy?
I would honestly just Google. We don't touch it either. No, we haven't heard anything good. We haven't heard anything bad. It's just one of those. We all make the same gas face as we're reading that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like, why would you ever change it?
Well, in the meantime, Zhou Yan asks, we have over 20 databases. Holy cow, someone went on a spree. We're on SQL Server 2017, and we want to turn on Query Store. We understand that it should generate about 5% overhead. Are there any suggestions you have to related to Query Store settings, any like overhead that you've seen?
I'll tell you a little story about a recent client.
Hit the banjo
It would be the same, but I don't know. It was 2017, and they had it. They enabled it, and the retention that they set up in the Query Store was 1 year. And they had a failover occur through availability groups due to patching or whatever it was, and they were down for several hours. And it had to do with Query Store because they opened up a case with Microsoft, and they needed to put a trace flag in place. So in the end, the whole issue was because of the mini plans for one query. They had ad hoc queries, thousands of plans per query, and so they had 100,000 plans hourly. And all of that, and they're distinct plans, so all of that's getting dumped into Query Store, and so Query Store, tons of overhead because of their environment. So make sure you don't have this many plans for one query issue, and primarily ad hoc plans.
Yeah, so for me, there's a setting in Query Store, which I actually just wrote a blog post about that hasn't gotten pushed out yet. But the setting is in the plan collection portion, and it lets you choose. There's a setting that says like collection whatever, collection something, and you can choose all, or you can choose another setting called auto.
Auto, that's
and
right.
When you choose the auto setting, it's AUTO, not OTTO. When you choose the auto setting, what happens is SQL Server doesn't go and collect every single plan that comes in. It only collects ones that meet some certain threshold. Capture mode. So if you change that to auto, then you'll only get like plans that use a certain amount of compile time, a certain amount of CPU, have a certain amount of executions. Before that, not like it doesn't stick just any old thing in there. Whenever you turn on Query Store, at least when I was experimenting at trying to write SP Blitz Query Store, I'd always find these just like ridiculous like Microsoft queries in there. I'm like, why are you showing me this? Like this has nothing to do. This is not anything that I would ever want to look at in Query Store. Like, show me my bad user
sense. Yeah.
Pretty great.
Yeah. So Erin Stellato also has a post she just happened to publish, her most recent one, about the overhead of Query Store. The other thing that I would say too is make sure you're on the most recent Service Pack and cumulative update, because man, this is one of those features that has had a lot of patches pushed to it.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris puts in, now I can see the questions. Chris puts in who the presenter was. That's cool. We'll have to go send him a thank you note. That's cool.
Yeah. All right. We have a question from Brandon, who is a brand new DBA. He's 8 months in to his gig.
All right.
And he wants to know what tools you think are the most valuable to have in your SQL toolkit for working with SQL Server and doing.
Has he heard of us before?
Interesting question.
Yes. So we needed those tools desperately. Every now and then we talk about it would suck if we didn't have them. If you click on scripts up at the top of our site, we have a whole barrage of those things. You can download them all in one chunk. If you made us each pick one of our own, or made us each pick one, boy, I think my favorite one would probably be SP Blitz Cache, just to rapidly point out what the problems are. Yeah, that'd probably be my favorite if you only let me live with one for the rest of my life. What about you, Tara? Which one would be your favorite?
Well, does it have to be one of our scripts?
No.
I think SP Who is Active, because I can do a lot with that.
Let's and so that's over at whoisactive.com. And this is one of those things where there's a download, you go install it, and you run it, and you think you know everything. Oh no! Go into the documentation, and it's insane. It does so much good stuff. What
I mean,
about
if it
you?
has to be one of ours, it'd be I think Blitz first, because normally as a production DBA, I'm troubleshooting an active performance issue, and so Blitz first, can really lend a hand to figure out what's going on.
Cool. Erik, how about you?
For me, I'm just gonna give a shout out to a different group of people. DBA tools. I don't work with PowerShell.
Whoa!
I thank God every day that I don't have to work with PowerShell because they've written things that do things in PowerShell. You can do and this isn't because we've talked about stuff that helps you troubleshoot performance and query plans and indexes and server reliability. This is like bread and butter DBA tasks, moving databases, moving users, setting stuff up, stuff that I don't never in the entire rest of my life want to do again. So thank goodness these people work with a language that I don't get along with. I am incongruous to this language, and that they have written tools that do things that I don't ever want to have to remember syntax for, look up, think about. So I think that they're a pretty cool bunch, even though me and PowerShell have our disagreements.
Somebody said the other week that they were like, hey, it's been a while since Erik's done a live blog of trying to use PowerShell. We kind of missed that. We should do that again.
No one said that, did they?
They did. It was funny.
No.
It was funny.
No. All right. Chatan asks another question. It might be a bit of a beginner question, but which one is better for performance? Nolock or read committed set transaction isolation level read uncommitted? Take it away, Tara.
I was going to reply, neither, because that's period, end of story. It is not the turbo button. They're identical. One of them is, just put it at the top of your script, and the whole thing is now read uncommitted. The other one's at each table level. They're identical. Nolock is read uncommitted, just at the table level. Don't use it. I mean, if you think that this is a performance improvement, you need to figure out what the root cause of the blocking or whatever it is, whatever contention issue you're having, and fix that. Read uncommitted nolock is not safe for production systems where data accuracy matters. I had a client a few weeks ago that, on the day 3 call where we delivered the findings, there were some people in management in the room, and I think it's actually during day 1, and everything said nolock, and so I asked the question, does data accuracy matter on this system? And the management people are like, hell yeah, it matters. And I was like, well, you can't do this. I mean, this can give you completely erroneous data. It is not the turbo boost. Use RCSI instead. It's safer. If you have to go the isolation level route.
Yeah, the thing about nolock or read uncommitted, no matter which one you choose, is everyone thinks that it means that your query isn't going to take locks out. What it really means is that your query isn't going to respect locks taken by other queries that are trying to modify data. And you can read all sorts of just awful, nasty stuff that Brent's going to show you with this lovely typing demo.
I might as well
Is he going to be able to do it fast enough?
I think so. So over on the left-hand side, I'm going to run an update. Over on the right-hand side, I'm going to say select count star from DBO users with nolock, and so I'm going to, on the right-hand side, run a count. At the same time, on the left-hand side, I am updating the table. Notice that I am not, over on the left-hand side, changing the numbers of rows in the table. It's the same number of rows in the table. I'm just changing the contents of one of the columns. So every time I run a select count star, you would think I would get exactly the same rows. So here's a quick rundown. I'm going to make sure I don't have any indexes, too, because I've been playing in this database server all day. Count star from DBO users, so there's about 2.5 million rows in here. If I run it 10 times,
not 24 million.
Not 24, just 2.5. Small number, 2.5 million. Now over on the left-hand side, I'm going to do the update. At the same time on the right-hand side, I'm going to go run the select star, and my numbers are all over the place. That's kind of messed up because I'm not even in this case going to commit. I'm going to stop while the update's running, and yet still the count star just sees different numbers of rows. So that's pretty hairy.
Crazy.
Yeah. Don't like that. Don't like that one bit.
Fix your queries, add indexes, fix your table design, maybe use RCSI if your system can support it. In my opinion, nolock read uncommitted should not be used, except as a DBA or developer querying production data in Management Studio. Then I use nolock because I don't really care about the results.
Only use nolock in incognito mode, or else
yeah,
people will see it and you get really embarrassed.
When you really don't care about the quality of data, like if you're running Twitter or Facebook and you're just showing people cat pictures, then sure. But it's how often do those people put that in SQL Server? You don't put stuff like that in SQL Server. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week at Office Hours, and we will see y'all next week. Adios.
Goodbye.